This conference will now be recorded.
Can't complain. Good. Just work.
Okay, we're coming up on 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. If we could, please. Is this thing working?
Yep.
Okay.
Get a little closer in here. Good.
Yeah. Are we online?
Hey, Kim, are we mic'd up? Is the chairman good? Okay.
Okay, as we get started, let's first please stand for a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum present. All members of the Planning Commission are present. Again, as usual, our microphone reminder. If you're going to make a comment or a suggestion or a question, please be sure that you have your mic turned on. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda. We have any comments or suggestions or corrections?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded for the adoption of the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Just in case, we have inserted a section here for public comment prior to the meeting, if anyone wants to, has something pertinent about tonight's meeting. No public? Okay, thank you. New business, adoption of the minutes from the November 20th, 2024 meeting, which is, I think, at the very end of our packet.
Move to adopt the minutes as submitted.
Motion has been made and seconded for the adoption of the minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, we have a single public hearing for tonight. As always, I will read through the application description. We will have have Alan give us any pertinent information in addition. The applicant would have time to address the Planning Commission, perhaps answer questions from the commission. Following that, if there is public comment, there will be time for that. All right, this is case number SUP-09-18-24, Meander Inn LLC, a special use permit application. Meander Inn LLC has filed a special use permit or SUP application to operate an event venue located at 2333 North James Madison Highway, Locustdale, Virginia 22948, and further identified by tax map parcel 52-1D. The property is zoned as agriculture, A1, and contains 77.067 acres. The property is improved by an existing historic manor house, outbuilding cottages, and barn. The applicant proposes to operate an event venue consisting of the existing building, converting a horse stable into a wedding facility, and adding 10 separate 200-square-foot cabins, short-term rentals, on the existing property. Alan, anything to add there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The project is the same as Workshop 1 and 2. Changes since our second workshop is that we received a commentary from VDOT as well as the Health Department. The Health Department letter is included in your packet. Most notably, VDOT commented that when a site plan is submitted, they will want to review the traffic count and see if changes are necessary at that time. The Health Department has similar comments that before permits will be issued, they're going to review their soil work as they would for any other project. So those are the comments from the agencies. Additionally, the proposed conditions are also in your packet. They are reformatted and revised since the last time that we saw them. And so if you'd have a look at the conditions and see if the Planning Commission finds those satisfactory.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Alan, or any comments, or any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is some of this property in land use now and have to be removed from land use? So this property has, I went and looked, and this property has 5 acres that's not in land use. Everything else, according to the records in Brian's office, is in land use. So all this is gonna be within the diameter of 5 acres?
So the part that's under land use now, the hayfields that we have, are on the flat land. These are the areas that we're looking at right now.
Okay, yeah, since we seem to have moved on to the applicant already, let's continue with that. Identify yourself, and go ahead and identify yourself.
So, yes, so Chris Seek here. And so under land use right now, that we, when we acquired the property in 2017, has the hay production that's been under use there. The parts that we're proposing is going to be outside of those areas. So we have this area that's kind of right now, it's not under, we're not using it currently for agriculture, and this is the area that we're looking to have those.
I guess the question I'm asking, I understand that. The question I'm asking, if the house and whatever buildings or whatever's there is within inside of the 5 acres that's not in land use, if you expand this, will that impede into some of the land that is in land use? Because 5 acres is not very much when you got a bigger place and driveway and everything that you've got to get to it.
I'd have to look into that and to be able to answer that clearly. But yeah, my understanding was this was the area that we're looking at is close to the footprint that we have now. It's not going to be part of it.
Okay?
Okay, since we're discussing this with the applicant, any other questions for the applicant?
I've got a question for Mr. Nichols.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't have to, based upon your 2 letters, we don't have to make any conditions for the, not, whatever VDOT and VDA said.
The ordinance allows for conditional approval. So if during the course of their site plan, they're not able to accomplish satisfactory conditions by one of the agencies, then they would not be permitted to proceed.
All right. Because I did some, because didn't see the letters before today, until tonight. So I had done some little research, and one of the things that I had come up with that answers some questions from the past, and probably will for the future, is at 14.4, and still have questions about this that we can talk about it at another time. But it says for special uses which require approval of Madison County Health Department and the Virginia Department of Transportation. My question is, when we do these special use permits, how do we identify which ones actually require approval?
Everything requires an approval with a site plan.
Well, we're not doing a site plan.
I
We're doing a
understand.
special use permit.
I would,
So my question is that when we start doing approvals for special use permits, do they all have, what's going to be the requirement if they have to have approval from the health department and VDOT?
I think that's something that I would love to have further discussion on, because we have a history of conditionally approving things and then moving that to the site plan, because if we choose not to recommend approval of a special use permit, the applicant doesn't undergo those expenses, and it allows us to move more quickly. I know that some of the commissioners like to not hold up the course of business, but it would certainly help administration if those terms were defined, exactly what things you want to wait to have approvals from those agencies on versus things where it's okay to defer those to the site plan. I would love to, define what those things are.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the way that was written.
Me too.
Good for future knowledge.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
might we ask, the gentleman said that he would be willing to look into that. If he does look into that and it's outside of the 5 acres, we need to make sure that we take it out of the land use and get the rollback taxes.
Yeah, in fact, as Mike was doing, I was looking at some specifics in the ordinance, especially the event venue ordinance. And there's kind of a very broad statement at the end of it. Any, or the specifics of any building, land improvements, and uses approved under a special use permit for an event venue shall be documented in the motion by the Board of Supervisors. So we need, in the application or in our consideration of it, we need all those specifics. I would suggest that may even include the things that, as the VDH says, they need somebody to check on the water and septic suitability of the land. So I'm not sure that this would be something we could perhaps still say that we can approve this or disapprove, or approve it with the provision that these two things are done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, what we've done in the past is we've approved those and let it come under the site plan.
Yeah, or said we approve it on the condition that these things are, VDOT especially is frequently something we have to approve before they come through.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carpenter, may I have a point of privilege, sir? In the ordinance, and Alan, I don't know how handy you have that, sir. If you go to Article 14, or specifically 14-4, is standards for issuance of special use permit. So you do have that allowance to make it conditionally approved. I think it's second to the last sentence in that paragraph. You can make it a conditional approval based on Health Department and VDOT approval. That is an option per your 14-4.
Mr. Chairman, that's the same, if you're reading about in the middle part of that, that's where I was reading from to begin with. And I was just thinking that we probably wouldn't even have to do a conditional. I
Are you
understand we
speaking of
can,
for
but I don't
special
think that we
uses
have
which,
to.
are you saying for special uses which require approval of
Correct.
Madison County? Yeah.
Correct.
I think, ultimately, you have that right, if you so choose so, to conditionally approve by 14-4, but it's the preview of this commission.
I would just say, sometime like to figure out what the requirements are for that. I mean, I would assume that if you were gonna do a special use permit that doesn't have a driveway at all, there's no entrance to it, you'd probably have to have a VDOT, but they've got an entrance already. So that would probably wouldn't apply. This is the way that I look at it. And I would have to think that, if they're doing continuing lodging, with an additional, septic field, that probably would have to come in under, Madison County Health Department. But once again, it's written there, and I just was wondering, what was the requirement for approval was. I know there's exceptions.
Yeah. It also says such approvals or evidence of action by the applicant shall be part of application presented to the planning commission. So, we have evidence, that he's been in contact with VDA. I'm not sure we have any evidence that he's been in contact with the VDOT.
I do have a response from Mr. Seek. I had forwarded the comments from VDOT
Okay.
over to the applicant, and Mr. John Wynn with VDOT had included the direct contact for the applicant to be in touch with for making arrangements to evaluate the entrance. My understanding is that's underway. Very good.
So we do have evidence of the application to VDOT as well. Okay. Very good. Any other questions, especially along those lines, since that's, we want to make sure that we've got all our Ts crossed and Is dotted here. Event venue does have, I think it's perhaps a much more, a greater impact potentially, so I think it's appropriate to have greater scrutiny than some SUPs. Okay, any other question or comment or discussion or questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
So on,
Yes.
for the draft proffers, and I don't think these change anything, but just to clarify them, would be on number 1, the outdoor amplified music will not be permitted in the evening more than 30 minutes after sunset.
We were basically trying to say that 30 minutes after sunset.
It cuts off, right. And maybe the planning commission thinks it's different. I just think it's confusing when you're using beginning about when something's going to end.
It's fair.
And then on the second one is just changing the word with to within. So again, I'm not trying to change the content of it, just making sure it's clear, because it essentially turns into
What was your proposed language for the time after sunset?
outdoor amplified music will not be permitted in the evening more than 30 minutes.
More than, okay.
After sunset.
Is that acceptable?
Okay. That implies then that you are planning perhaps events. I know you were talking about rebuilding the stables for a wedding venue, basically. So this implies that you're also planning outside events with amplified music during the day.
No, just wanted to clarify that, you know, we did one event one time where we had a bluegrass band come out for the day, kids came out, we had alpacas out there, it was a big hit, you know, it was middle of the day, amplified music was light amplification, and we'd like to be able to do those kind of things in the future without, you know, causing any disturbances to our neighbors.
Okay. We're not talking a regular practice, we're talking.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Seek, this to you, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on the bus and the traffic for larger vehicles. Will there be dedicated bus parking out there, and it will again, noise of the bus and all that? I'm just thinking of what neighbors could, down the road, kind of come at you with. Is there dedicated bus parking for your larger events?
That would be the plan, if we needed buses, parking for buses, yes, we would plan to have those on the property to make sure that they're.
And are you discussing that with VDOT, the entrance, where your kind of existing gate is?
That would be part of the conversation as we're looking at that, what we can do now and what we need to do to make changes to that.
Since Zach has mentioned parking, when we look at your kind of preliminary site plan showing a parking area for the guest cottages or the glamping area, you do show a parking area, but we don't have any real sense of dimensions, the size and number of parking spaces. Do you have any clarification on that?
So, you know, that was my attempt. I'm not a site engineer, or, you know, it's just kind of giving you guys the idea of what the plan is and what we're looking at, where we're looking to place that parking. Again, trying to keep the aesthetic of the entrance intact so that you're not looking at a parking lot when you're driving by. So we haven't got to those details yet, but I think what we're looking at is more of what is that, what's the capacity going to be based on our understanding of our need to keep the footprint of the overall development under those limits that we talked about on the first one, which we call delay. So I think that's what we're going to do as we engage the services of a professional to help us understand and look at what the dimensions of that would be and to make sure it's adequate for both the available and for the extra value.
But we don't have any, we can assume some numbers. For example, we know the number of short-term rentals, glamping area that you're talking about. One of the things we don't know, I guess, is this parking area is going to serve the venue, it's the wedding venue. Do we have an idea of the actual size of that, of the stable?
The stable itself is 10 by 10. So,
Mr. Chairman, we're looking into a site plan issue here.
Yeah. But
That's not part of the application.
one of the problems that I see, we do need some information ahead of time about the size of the, well, it ties into two things. The required amount of parking. Now, as far as I can read here, you're not in any of the situations where it says you've got to have one parking space for each guest or something like that. But there is a statement in here somewhere that a reasonable number of parking spaces must be available for all the guests. So that's one reason I was asking. Do you have an idea about the size of the barn and how many guests potentially you're planning to have?
I think the aim was looking at the number of guests would be, the max would be around 120. That would be
Okay.
the max, and we're not expecting those. Based on the inquiries that we get for the weddings, it's kind of in that 60 to 80, you know, those are our larger inquiries that come out. Most of them that we're doing today are in that 20 range. And that has to do with the number of rooms we have as well. But I think that just from our experience and kind of what we see with the landscape is that kind of 80 to 120 would be that kind of sweet spot for a larger size wedding. And we don't think that really that we have the capacity to build larger weddings.
Okay. Well, to kind of tie this into what I was aiming for, I came across a comment in your packet that you're trying to avoid having to deal with the more than 1 acre of land disturbance. And I'm wondering if your parking area alone may exceed that. So that's
Yeah,
kind of what I'm aiming at.
yeah, that came up in the first workshop, and I think that was when we originally started this process. We had we were under pressure for timeline, and we were trying to get this through as fast as we can. We since have kind of slowed that back a little bit, so we're not under this got to get it done by the end of the year kind of thing, or we're losing. We're actually have engaged the services of some professionals that work in the historical hotel space that are helping us with the raise, and they've encouraged us to even go larger with the amount we're looking to raise now. So now the project has gotten up to about a $7.5 million goal is the goal that we have right now. And so that was very different than when we started this process, and it was bringing them out, looking at what we have, looking at what our plans are, looking at this site plan that we have here, and based on that and doing these projections and everything, we've been able to see a path for how this could actually give us an opportunity to raise more, to fix up the manor house and put some investment into the older property and the rooms and everything that we know we also need to do as well.
Okay,
So going back to answer your question on that one, when I was originally saying that acre and kind of getting it fast as we can so we don't lose this opportunity, that's not as big of an imperative to us. We want to do it right, we want to do it the right way, we want to get the right support. Make sure, as I said on the first time we came here, we want to fit with what you have envisioned for the way you want to see the county developed and how we can be part of that. And we want to make sure that we're following every guideline that we have in terms of how this should be done, and we want to do this
You know, personally, I like the vision. I think it's going to be great for the county. This is more in terms of potential pitfalls. I think some of the planning commissioners have more experience with this, but if you try to avoid DEQ up front, a lot of times you end up spending twice as much time and money on the back end. So don't try to avoid it.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may. Article 14-9-8 regulates the number of parking spaces for each of the uses on the property. So the applicant, during their site plan submission, is going to have to submit that based on the minimum requirements that are there. And parking spaces are defined in sizes, and so if we end up going over an acre to meet the minimum, then that's just the avenue it'll have to be. So,
I understand that. And like I said, when we started the process, it was how quickly can we get this done, and we're under pressure. Now that pressure's been taken off of us, and we're willing to take the time it takes in order to make this thing.
Good. I had noticed that comment in your packet, and I was a little concerned about it. Okay.
You guys
Yes,
scared me on the
Jim.
first time.
Yeah, Jim.
Good, thank you. Question for Mr. Seek. I want to make certain I understand this. Our large-scale outdoor event, large scale means events anticipated to attract 300 or more daily attendees, so you will never, ever hit that. I didn't think
That's
so.
not I mean, for those who've been to the property, you know.
Oh,
what we're
that's
looking at.
right.
That is not the kind of place we're looking at. This is
No.
not a concert venue, this is about.
I just wanted that
just being able to-
clarified for the record. Thank you very much.
Yeah, by the way, that's what a lot of this is about,
Yes.
clarification.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Discussion, comments?
So I'm trying to figure out if we are going to be asking for a site plan or not.
I think we keep being told site plan is the next step.
So he is required to have one? I mean, based upon,
Well,
he's really just doing a renovation of a barn and parking for what's,
he'll have to, let me put it together for you. Just a minute here. Going to find the clause that requires it.
I'm not so sure he's got to do a site plan. I'm looking under A 2.2.9. And it's talking about less than 40,000 square feet can be approved by the zoning administrator.
So A.2.4, no building permit shall be issued until a site plan or zoning permit, when required, as may be applicable, has been approved in accordance with this ordinance. Even we have a commercial property with this level of complexity, we're going to require a site plan.
yeah, and to
You're
be
gonna
honest,
get in a situation where you're gonna be over acre. You look at 10 cabins, you look at redoing the barn, you look at parking 120 people, can't do that in an acre.
right.
But I think because of that, he has to have a site plan.
Exactly.
That doesn't, just because he's going 100,000 square feet, or 10,000 square feet, doesn't require you to have a site plan.
Well, we may not require a site plan, but in the application requirements, the event venue has some very specific occupation requirements too, on 1418.4. The first is a thorough explanation of the scope and variety of buildings, land improvements, and uses that will be installed on the property. Now, that's not saying it has to be a site plan.
That's right, it doesn't say it has to be a site plan.
But we need the thorough explanation of basically what we're planning, you know.
So when you get over the amount that DEQ will allow you to do, you gotta turn a site plan into DEQ.
But, I mean, we're looking at the SUP application right now, not the site plan.
That's right.
Another one, yeah, we have the second, the B, the anticipated installation timetable or phasing plan, which, again, you've given us some input on that, but at this point, you really can't give us much detail, but you are phasing some things in here, if I understand.
Yes, and that's gonna be dependent on a variety of different things.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of approval tonight of
on this myself.
Can require a site plan as part of the SUP, or whether one's going to be required. What's the question? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
All of the above, yeah.
All of the above.
I'll look at it right now. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
I mean, we do have, the next application requirement is appropriate concept maps showing lot lines, location of existing new land features, improvements, and other pertinent information. We do have a certain amount of that in our packet already, but that is kind of along the lines of the site plan. It just doesn't have, it doesn't say what the specifics are of it. It does require some kind of concept map. This is, yeah.
Well, let's ask this question. If we approve this, can we put a stipulation in there that if, when zoning and building looks at this, if a site plan is required, then they will be the ones that will take that over and handle it? Can we do that, sir?
Let me ask a question of the applicant. Were you planning on doing a site plan?
I was here to follow the direction you guys tell me I need to follow, so.
Okay.
You know, this is new for us.
Good
as
answer.
We're going through and, just kind of following the steps and doing one at a time, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. I can continue to look. If the applicant's willing to, as part of this, make it a condition of SUP that he's going to submit a site plan for approval, then we can go forward with that as a condition to be added to the SUP. I can also keep looking if we want to get a different answer.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the applicant will come in for a building permit for renovations. Anything that he's going to do outside of the renovation space, he's going to have to get a zoning permit for. They're not going to issue building permit for things outside without a zoning permit. And at that point, we're going to require a site plan from the applicant
Okay.
for those reasons. So
Yeah.
Mr. Hannon's right. We can enforce it through a special use permit condition if you'd like. And I think that makes it clear for everybody,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do there.
The only other thing that I can think to add to this, as far as I know, we have one existing event venue, SUP, in the county. And when that was done, I don't think, I mean, they did have drawings and they had sketches and they had maps and stuff, but they did not have an actual legal site plan.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's coming.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
but at the time that we examined that, made the recommendations, the board acted on it, we didn't ask for the site plan. We had information, but it wasn't an actual site plan. I think, which is kind of going along with what Pete's saying, we don't normally ask for a site plan at this stage, but the event venue does require some information, and we do have quite a bit of it. I mean, we've got the broad outline of where you're mapping things and stuff. So, is that, Pete, does that kind of go along with what you were trying to say too?
Yeah, I mean, like we did Cresseray.
Yeah.
And Cresseray, they didn't have a VDOT or VDH or site plan. We approved that based on what the large venue required, and that's kind of the way I see this here. We were approving that, and then we'll move forward from that point through the building and zoning office.
So we have precedent for doing it this way, yeah.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols, probably clarification, if everything goes through tonight, the applicant will be able to begin remodeling regardless of the site plan on the existing structures? Like, we're not impeding that.
The application, or the applicant can come in and get a building permit for the things that exist. For anything that is outside of what exists now, they're going to have to get a zoning permit before they could do anything. Yes.
Okay, so basically remodeling the horse barn, the stable.
That's about as far as it's going to go without a zoning permit. And I mean, and at that point, when the applicant is ready to install the cabins or move dirt or any of those things, we're going to require a site plan, especially considering the amount required. It's not like we're going to put in one little park model RV or a homeowner's going to put up a garden shed. We've got a large project. It's going to require soils work and
Yeah,
there's going to be drainage work. There's a lot of dirt moving. It's going to require an engineered site plan.
Yeah, actually, I was already moving on to the building permit phase here. To remodel that stable, I think, would require a building permit, am I right?
Yes,
So we automatically get into that right away.
Yes.
As soon as he's starting that, yeah. Okay, any further questions, discussion, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes, sir.
make a motion that case number SUP-09-18-24 be recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval with the condition number 1 be restated to say outdoor amplified music will not be permitted in the evenings more than 30 minutes after sunset.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All right. To approve case number SUP-09-18-24 with the wording change in the proffered condition number 1, that the outdoor amplified music will not be permitted in the evenings more than 30 minutes after sunset.
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Hannon also recommended that in
second.
point 2, that clear and visible signage marking the boundaries of the property will be installed to ensure guests will remain within the confines of Meander.
Okay, so.
I would recommend that as a friendly amendment.
Okay. In addition to
I missed
the-
that.
All right, so,
I've recommended a friendly amendment
yep,
that condition number 2 be changed to reflect in that
Within.
second line, remain within the confines, strike with and add within the confines of Meander.
okay. Shall I restate the?
Please.
Okay. All right. So the new motion amended is to recommend case number SUP-09-18-24 with the following changes. Condition 1 will be outdoor amplified music will not be permitted in the evenings more than 30 minutes after sunset. Condition 2, clear and visible signage marking the boundaries of the property will be installed to ensure guests will remain within the confines of Meander. Is there any further discussion?
Do I need to restate that being I made the motion?
No, you could just
Just
accept the
say-
friendly amendment, and the second can accept the friendly amendment, and then we can go to the vote.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we have the second on that?
Second.
Second, okay. All right, having been moved and seconded with the corrections to the amendments, to the conditions, all in favor of recommending this for approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm just, point of order, I will recuse myself from the vote, so don't count me in that tally.
Okay, very good. Nathan is recused, okay. All right, thank you. So we will be recommending this for approval with those 2 changes. Thank you, sir. All right, any other items from, oops, I'm sorry, any public comment? I keep forgetting that, since we have no public, okay. Do we have anybody online? Okay, thank you. All right, any other items from Planning Commission staff for the public? All right, Alan, let's move on to the incoming workshop items then. Thank you, sir.
All right. For December workshop, we have a few things coming up. We have the first workshop for Mr. Josh Heggie, who is, this is a rezoning application, but the primary purpose is to remove the proffers, if you so choose. This was heard in PDRC 2 months ago. This is the first time that Mr. Heggie has been in town to be available to attend, so this will be our first workshop. It's up and coming. The second workshop for Kriglersville Elementary School will also be heard in in the December workshop. Virginia Lawnscapes, second workshop is going to be moved to January, as they are not in town and available to attend. You all should have a letter from the zoning office addressing an amendment, a potential amendment to the BLA, the boundary line adjustment ordinance that was passed in August. And so if you would take a little time and read the amendment for your consideration, we will address that at our upcoming workshop. We also have the adoption of a definition of a personal campground, which is a response to a case, Mr. Kratz's case, which was heard at the previous Planning Commission workshop. That language will be drafted and sent to you by the end of the week. And Planning Commission Nominating Committee. Mr. Chairman?
All right, thank you. Once again, any public comment on any of this? Okay. If not, then I have a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
one more thing I forgot to add. We do have an additional case after PDRC of Miss Amanda Hoffner is applying for her dog kennel coming up on the December workshop as well.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made and seconded. Yes, sir.
You had an item on there, nominating committee,
Uh-huh.
taking care of that tonight, or you?
No, that'll be the workshop. I don't want to take the Board of Supervisors' time on that. Thank you. Any other question or discussion? All right, all in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
All right. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors portion of the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. The only thing I'd like to add is under new business, and I'd like to do it as ordinance number 2024-SOA-07-03-04, potential boundary line adjustment amendment to our existing ordinance, and doing something with that. Anybody else have anything we need to add this evening? What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. All right, back to the case. Case number SUP-09-18-24, Meander Inn LLC, special use permit application. Meander Inn LLC has filed a special use permit, SUP, application to operate an event venue located at 2333 North James Madison Highway, Locustdale, Virginia, 22948, and further identified by tax map parcel 52-1D. This property is zoned agriculture A1 and contains 77.067 acres. The property is improved by an existing historic manor house, outbuildings, cottage, and barn. The applicant proposes to operate an event venue consisting of the existing building, converting a horse stable into a wedding facility, and adding 10 separate 200 square feet cabins, short-term rentals on the existing property. Alan, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Any questions for Alan or Jonathan or whoever?
I have comments, Mr. Chairman, whenever.
All right, yes, sir. To the applicants, Mr. Seek, anybody, do you have anything to add?
No,
All right, questions for the applicant? All right, back to the board. Please, Mr. Jewett.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Dawson and I visited the site this afternoon. We had some additional questions that we felt would be best answered with a first-hand viewing of the site, proposed site, and also questions specifically to the owners. One of the things that I was concerned, and that's down in my neighborhood, as you know, and one of the things that I wanted to clarify with the owner, and it's evidently on the proposed plan, was that everything was going to be out of the floodplain, because we know that has had some serious flooding in the past, And according to the GIS, I'm just double checking the GIS, according to the handout, it looks like they're clear of that. So that's not an issue. The other thing that we talked about, and this is always a problem when we're looking and considering these venues, is outside amplified music. And we had a good discussion on that, and actually, I thought the owners provided, and I'd like for them to comment on what they told me as far as their operations based upon the clientele and the themes that they want to do with regard to their wedding venue. So would you gentlemen mind?
This is Brother Dave here from the Tavern in Washington, D.C. So, he answered this question the first time around, so I'd love to take the second time.
Can I stand up, gentlemen?
No, sir. Whatever you're
I
comfortable.
feel very,
with.
I feel
It's
very
okay.
bizarre responding to the dais while I'm sitting, so, but I also don't want to break what.
Either way.
What everyone else, I'm going to stand, I'm sorry. Yeah, so what I said earlier today, I've been helping Chris the last 9 months get things on track. You know, my business up in DC doesn't necessarily have a stake in this or anything like that. We've been interested in helping out. Dan, who used to work for me up here, has come down to run the property, and I feel like a certain mentorship to him to help him get on track. Also seeks good people. So I'm trying to make this business successful. Mr. Dawson, Mr. Jewett came out earlier and asked about, what's it called? Amplified noise? I told him I didn't come down here to help him run a honky-tonk. And I mean that. We want to have weddings in there. 100 and 120 is the absolute limit. When you look at what the footprint of that actual space is, Chris is a dreamer. He's not doing 120 people seated dinner in there. There might be a reception for about 110 at the most. Seated's probably going to be about 80 people. Business model that's going to make that place successful and contribute to your guys' area is not going to be 200 people, 150. You want to have people come in there, not be disruptive, not coming in and out of there intoxicated, because once you get a reputation for something like that, people's daughters aren't going to want to have their event at our venue. So I think that that's basically what I said, Mr. Jewett. Mr. Dawson, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. The other issue has been discussed here is as far as what VDOT is going to require. I think it's interesting to note that if you look at Willow Grove, which is a similar venue on the other end of 15, they have an entrance that is less safely placed than Meander's current entrance, and I have seen that place, Willow Grove, packed with cars. The field's completely filled up weekend after weekend, and I have yet to hear of any problems, safety problems or traffic problems. These things tend to, people all come at one time and they tend to leave at one time. So I really have confidence that they're not going to have a problem getting their entrance to comply with any VDOT requirements. And as I said, I wanted to, going through the packet and talking with them, I did want to compliment Mr. Nichols. I think he put together a very complete package, and that the applicants could be commended on the way that they developed and executed this proposal. And I think this would be great for Madison County. This is the kind of development that we want based upon our comprehensive plan and our emphasis, which emphasizes agro/tourism. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Couldn't have said it better, Jim. Anybody else? I would like to comment about the stapling of the packet. It leads to interesting way of reading. I like variety. Back to the case at hand. Anybody else have any comments? What would y'all like to do?
Do you want to move?
Mr. Chairman, I move that case number SUP-09-18-24 be approved as recommended by the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Mr.
Gentleman,
Chairman.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Did you just want to provide an opportunity for public comment on this?
I already, I didn't.
Not for this
Dang it,
particular
I
one.
apologize. Public comment. All right, back to the board.
Apologize for the interruption, Mr. Chairman.
No, I apologize.
That's what you're there for.
Nope, don't
You
mind
mind
at all.
restating your motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that case number SUP-09-18-24 be moved for approval as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Let's change this up. I'll second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen. New business, we do have in front of us, met with E.J. Burke, and Dave Lewis, both, surveyors in Madison County, with Alan, Jonathan, Hannon. I think Brian was there. No, Brian wasn't there. Went through it. Essentially, Alan's come up with, new language based on that conversation. We were previously on boundary line adjustments, requiring them to basically mark on the survey everything that's on the property. The example set was, if you're doing a boundary line adjustment on a 500-acre piece, why are you surveying a barn that's 1,000 feet out from where you're doing it? It has no effect on it. This has the potential to, by making this amendment, it has the potential to cut the cost by several $1,000s from surveyors to the citizens. I'd like to see this language be tasked to the planning commission to go through the public, go through a workshop, and then go to a public hearing and see if we can get this thing going. Alan, do you have more comments on this?
I think you summed it up very well, sir.
Anybody else, Jonathan? Hannon?
No, it's common sense approach. I appreciate the surveyors pointing this out. It makes perfect good sense, so.
Anything, Hannon?
No.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send the ordinance, possible ordinance 2024-SOA-03-04 to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation back to the board.
I second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No other business, information, and correspondence. You have anything down there?
Sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, back to public comment. All right, back to the board. What do y'all want to do?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.